Hello and welcome to a new and exciting product that we can add to our older generation motorbikes to add a bit of technology and importantly add some new safety features to keep us safe out on the road. Now in this video up here on the right hand side, that was my initial review of INNOVV's ThirdEYE blind spot detection system, and at the launch there was two products. There was this one up here, which is their watch version, which is a great product if you've got, for example, a classic bike or a retro bike and you don't have a lot of space on your dashboard. That system is really simple and easy to install. The second version they released was these little tiny LED mounts and you could mount them to your mirrors, you could mount them to different places on your dashboard, you could also mount them to your clutch and brake fluid reservoir, and if you've got a touring bike, that was the kit to fit on that sort of a touring stroke adventure bike. Now, in my initial review, I did say I would come back and tell you more about the system performance, which I haven't done up until this point because I've been waiting for this new product. It's been kind of going on in the background in terms of development for some months, and I'm delighted to be able to show you what we can now do. So this new product is a collaboration between two companies, and that is INNOVV and Weiser-Technik, to ultimately bring you a complete kit that includes everything you need, including the new OEM mirrors, the R1300 mirrors, and an installation kit for getting a nice clean install on the front of your motorbike. And I'll put some pictures up so you can have a look. Once you've installed this system, which is incredibly easy to do, you're going to end up with an OEM level of fit and finish because we're using the BMW mirrors, and it is simply brilliant. It's a nice clean install. Simply put, if you've got mirrors that mount on your handlebars, you're probably going to find that this kit will fit your motorbike. Now, initially at launch, this is going to be aimed at BMW motorbikes, but as you're going to see later on, it might be possible to fit this to a range of other manufacturers' motorbikes. And if you are interested in doing a similar thing, whereby we take the inbuilt LED warning system in the mirrors from the other brands of motorbikes like KTM and Honda, and you want to do a similar thing with the older generation motorbikes, what I suggest you do is send an email to Weiser-Technik, and if enough people are interested, they'll also work with INNOVV to come up with a new system that includes OEM mirrors so that you can fit it on different brands of motorbikes. There are a lot of bikes that you can fit them to, and I'm going to show you later in this video how you can very easily find out if your bike will accept these mirrors. Now, the reason why I've been delayed in my review about the performance of the system out on the road is because I've been waiting for this to come out. We've been talking about this for quite some time. INNOVV have been simply brilliant. Their chief engineer, once he heard this idea, and there were several of us that came up with this idea to fit the OEM mirrors combined with his radar system, he jumped straight on the project, and Weiser-Technik sent them some mirrors so they could do their testing and development. Once that had been finished, they sent it to me, and then I've been using it for, I think, 7 weeks now. Now, Weiser-Technik also had a set of these mirrors mounted on a BMW, that was an R9T, at the ABR Festival in June, which I was at on their stand, and it simply is a brilliant system. The kit comes with everything you need to install it, and you get a nice clean install. So these are BMW's OEM mirrors that come fitted as standard if you've got the radar pack on the new R1300GS. And what they have, importantly, is they have that inbuilt warning triangle within the mirror. And what that's going to give us is a beautifully stealthy, sleek install integrated with INNOVV's ThirdEYE Radar system. Now, it is important to understand that the original system, that watch version and the LED version, you can't retrofit it. In other words, try and connect it to these mirrors because they work at a different voltage and they have different current requirements for these LEDs inside. So the system that comes from INNOVV is specific for the BMW, specifically for these R1300GS mirrors. That's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to show you how to tell whether you can fit these mirrors on your motorbike, give you some installation tips, some cable routing tips, and then I'll show you some footage later on of the bike out on the road and how it functions. It is simply a brilliant system, and over the last couple of months I've had no false readings. The system has performed absolutely flawlessly. It is just like, for me, just like riding a new R1300GS with the radar pack on. It is simply brilliant. And also we need to remember that with the INNOVV system, we also have, which we did have on those two early versions, the watch and the LED version, we had rear collision warning as well. That was built into the system. So for me, it has just performed brilliantly. And as you can probably tell, I'm really excited and I'm delighted to get this on my bike because the installation is really simple. It's very easy to do. We're going to be able to fit these to a whole range of older generation BMWs, so we can add a bit of safety and importantly a bit of tech to our older motorbikes. So let's get started. So how do you find out whether these BMW R1300GS mirrors with the built-in LED indicator warning light will mount to your earlier model BMWs? Well, it is in fact very easy to find out, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. So what you're going to need to get yourself is pop off to your local hardware store and you want to ask for an M10 bolt. 5 or 7 centimeters in length. Now you don't need to worry about thread pitch because the M10 bolt is 1.5 millimeters. They're all going to be right-hand threads. There's very few of them that will be anti-clockwise threads, so it's just a regular M10 bolt. Then what you're going to need is a small piece of electrical insulating tape, and you're going to use the tape, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. Now with that simple bolt, that's all you need to buy. It'll probably cost you just a few euros from your hardware store, and then you're going to take your mirror, your original mirror, off your motorbike, and then we're going to use that bolt to test the thread, not only in terms of the thread and the thread pitch and size, but in terms of the depth, because when we mount the R1300GS mirrors, we are going to need around 10 to 12 millimeters of thread depth to hold that mirror nice and stable. Now, I've installed this on my own bike, and of course, if you've already got the very latest R1300GS, but you didn't opt for the radar pack, you can of course use this INNOVV system with a pair of mirrors to add that function to your new R1300GS, and it is simply a brilliant system. It works exactly like, as far as I can tell, with all the testing I've done, it works just the same as the BMW system at a fraction of the cost. Anyway, let me show you how you do the actual test. So what we're going to look at now is the simplest and easiest way for you to find out whether we can fit the R1300 mirrors to your BMW. So on this one, we're going to lift up this rubber, and then you've normally got two nuts. There's an upper nut, which is the locking nut, which controls the angle of this bar, left to right, and then there is an adapter. Now, not all bikes have an adapter. Sometimes there's just a locking nut going direct to the top, which is fine. But in this case, we've got an adapter. Now, I'm going to use a 14mm spanner. We know the thread is clockwise, and these are normally quite tight, and then I'm going to rotate the mirror off. Bear in mind that down here on the 1250 there is a spacer. It's about a 3mm plastic spacer. We're going to reuse that. Your bike may or may not have one of these. If it has one, we need to reuse it. And then we're just going to rotate the mirror and take it completely off, not losing that plastic spacer. Now, the next bit of the test, it would be fairly easy to try that M10 bolt straight in here to see whether it works. But what we actually want to do is we want to also measure the depth in here on your bike, because we're going to need approximately 12 millimeters. When that spacer is on there, and I'll put some different pictures on the screen, that thread is approximately 12 millimeters in depth. So then that means what we can do very, very easily, we've got our M10 bolt. I've placed a piece of electrical tape approximately 12 millimeters from the base here, so I can simulate what we've just removed. So then all we need to do is gently try, does the bolt go in nice and easily, and does it go down all the way to the electrical tape? And if it does, this is great news, because this tells us not only is the thread compatible with the R1300 mirrors, but we've also got enough depth to get a nice good fit for stability for that mirror in your housing. So that really is the tip to find out whether your bike can use the R1300 mirrors. So now let's move on to the installation, cable routing and cable management. Now the simplest and easiest thing to do is to watch this video down here below, because in that video I guide you through step by step all the tools that you need, the panels that you need to remove, some suggestions for mounting the radar system on the rear of the bike, and what you're going to end up with if you follow that episode is 90% of what we're going to do today, and I'm going to cover the last little step in a moment. Now if you follow that guide, what you're going to end up with is two cables. cables, one going to the left-hand mirror and one going to the right-hand mirror, and they're going to exit down here in this center cockpit area. And we're actually going to remove this top panel and lay one cable down the left-hand side and one cable down the right-hand side. It really is straightforward to do. So let's now look at the final step of fitting the R1300 mirrors and some suggestions for cable routing and cable management, because there are several ways you can do this. There's a very simple, easy way, which you can just use cable ties, or there's a slightly more professional way, which I'm going to show you. Let's have a look. So with regards to mounting the mirror to your motorbike, a couple of things I want to highlight. So this is the mirror assembly as it comes supplied in the kit from BMW. So all we need to do, we're going to replace that washer that we removed very early on in the process when we took the original mirrors off, and then ever so gently rotate your mirror and turn it on to the handlebars. Now, this bottom nut here, this is the adjustment for the mirror. So we can move the mirror left and right, and in simple terms, this mirror needs to be in line with your grips. So we can easily set that up using this nut on the bottom and a 14mm spanner, and just get that alignment absolutely correct like that, and then with a firm pull, turn that nut and lock that mirror firmly in place. Now, the one additional thing I want to highlight are these two additional nuts. Now, you might not think that this is a nut, but this actually has a flat 14mm edge, and there's a 14mm nut on the top, and they are there for a very specific reason. Now, the mirrors as they come from BMW, this assembly here is preset. You do not need to adjust it. But in the odd, rare occasions where some owners have changed their handlebars, maybe they've got a different upsweep, a different angle, you may need to adjust this. And I'll put some pictures up so you can see what I mean. This protrusion, this plastic assembly, actually needs to be in line with the handlebars, and it doesn't want to be pointing towards you or towards the reservoir, because we've got to get the boot on there and we've got to make our connection. But as it comes from the factory out of the box, it is going to line up. But just in case some of you have odd handlebars, we can make an adjustment. So what we would do, we would use a 14mm spanner, not on this nut on the bottom, but actually on this flat surface here, and then undo this top 14mm nut just by about half a turn. And then that would give us some rotation with this assembly in the middle. And you can move it a very small amount. And now I've took mine apart to have a look to see how much I think we can safely get away with. But you have around 45 degrees of left and right movement to adjust this perfectly to align with your bars to get a nice neat install. But just to confirm, for most people, you're not going to need to do that because it comes preset. And the rest is really quite simple. We're going to slide this boot down on top of that upper 14mm nut, like so. And now I'm going to show you how we do the connections and what we're doing with these additional parts that come with the Weiser-Technik kit. So with regards to cable management and cable routing, a couple of things to highlight at this point. So within the Weiser-Technik kit, you are going to find a meter of this computer shielding cable, which will give us this nice looking finish on top of the INNOVV cables. We also have in the kit the heat shrink tubing to give us a nice waterproof connection between the connector and this sheathing. So all we're going to do is you're going to cut this, you're going to measure carefully from here down through the center of the bike, and you can decide how much of this you want to use. And as I showed you earlier on, it is flexible and it will pull quite far apart, about 12-13mm, and then you just cut it to length and slide it over the top of this connector and move it along the outside of the INNOVV cable. And then when you're ready and you're happy with the length, you would then take your heat shrink tubing, passing it over the top of this connector like so, and then using a hot air gun, shrink it down to neatly grip this connector on the top and this shielding cable underneath. And then what you're going to end up is a cable looking like this, and I'll move the camera so you can see how we're going to do the connection to the rest of the system with the rubber straps in a moment. Now, it is important at this point to point out that this cable here, when you mount it, it needs to go over the top, not underneath. If you mount it this way, water will get into that connector. So that is definitely not what you want to do. So all we need to do is the BMW system has a blue dot on here, and we have a nipple on the bottom of the INNOVV connector. And you can't get this wrong, it will only fit one way. And then if I'm quiet, you'll hear it clip together. That's it, clip. Remember what I said? We need to go over the top and then just past that. This has a couple of plastic prongs on this connector here, and we just mount it in, and if I'm quiet, you'll hear it clip into place, clip like that, and that's it, we're done. We just need to make sure that cable goes over the top and not underneath. And then it's a simple case, we need to make sure that this boot that I showed you earlier on is placed on top of that 14mm nut at the very top, and then we very carefully take that boot, wiggle it down, hold this cable with our finger, and then the boot firmly slides completely over the top, like so, and then we have an incredibly neat install. So what I'll do, I'll change the camera position so that you can see what I've done with the cable routing. So we're still looking at the right hand side of the bike next to the brake fluid reservoir, and what you can see here, this is the PET, inside of which are the INNOVV cables. And then all I've done is I've unclipped these rubber ties that are part of the BMW system. You don't have to buy these are already on your bike, and then you undo these and you can feed this cable through, and I'll just show you how easy they are to come apart. You just unhook them like so, like this. They're really quite flexible and stretchy, and then you can lay your cable to follow the lines of the brake fluid and the other cables that come from the controls, and then you just bring this little tab back up, and with a little bit of pulling, it clips back over, and then you feed the cap through like that. And then what you end up with a really neat install. You really can't notice that these are aftermarket cables. So in a moment, I'm going to show you two short video clips, and I want to do this because I want to highlight the difference between when the system is working in the blind spot detection mode and the other mode, which is the collision warning system, because the function of the LED is very different, and I just want to highlight that so that when you've installed the system, you understand what's going on. Because when a vehicle is passing within that blind spot, the LED comes on and it stays constant as the system tracks the vehicle moving past you and the motorbike. But the collision warning system, in addition to tracking the vehicle, if its speed is considerably higher than you and the motorbike, instead of that LED being constant on and illuminated, it actually flashes. So I think what we'll do, I'll show you the first clip with a lorry and a couple of cars passing me, and this is the blind spot detection mode. Let's have a look. So looking at this next clip, with regards to system performance and reliability over the last few months, it has been absolutely brilliant. Now, if you look in the left-hand mirror, we have this large red lorry moving into our blind spot area, and the warning triangle illuminates and stays constant as the vehicle passes quite closely to the left-hand side of my bike. And then if we continue to look, it then picks up the next three cars, the warning triangle illuminates, but importantly, we're going to see another clip in a moment, and I just want to highlight the difference. The warning triangle illuminates, as you'll see in a moment, and it stays constant. At this phase of its detection, it is not flashing. So in this next clip, I just want to highlight what's going to be happening in the footage so that you know where to look on what I'm actually trying to simulate. Now, you're going to be looking into the right-hand mirror, and importantly, you'll notice that the LED function, instead of being constantly on, it then changes to a flashing mode, because that is the collision warning system activated because it's detected a car or a vehicle behind that's traveling considerably faster than I am on the motorbike, because I am rapidly slowing down. So what I try to simulate here is sometimes this does happen. I'm approaching a vehicle behind, I think it's a camper van, and initially I indicate to turn left. But right at the last minute, I realise I've made the wrong decision. I actually want to turn right, and I'm about to pull out and pass the camper van. But importantly, in that sort of manoeuvre, what I should be doing is my mirror signal manoeuvre and having a look behind, and I would normally do that. But what I want to show in this clip is that the system has detected not only that there is a car moving into that blind spot zone, but the fact that it's detected it's traveling considerably faster, and I really don't have a lot of reaction time, and the system does pick it up and it does flash. Let's have a look at the clip. So looking at the right-hand mirror, what we're looking for is the changing function of that warning triangle, and it starts to flash to indicate that the collision warning system has detected a vehicle to my right hand side that is traveling considerably faster than me, and it works every time. It's brilliant. So all three versions of the INNOVV ThirdEye, that's the original watch and mirror version with those little tiny LEDs that you can stick in different positions, and of course the new system using these BMW mirrors, all three systems have for me worked perfectly. They've never let me down. They always pick up cars moving into my blind spot, and the collision warning assistance where those LEDs flash, both of those LEDs flash to let you know something's fast approaching from behind. It's never failed to pick up these vehicles, and I've done lots of testing, and there's really no point me showing you tons of footage just to repeat the same thing we've just looked at. Just trust me, it works brilliantly. Anyway, let's move on. Now, a couple of important things I'd like to highlight. The full kit that comes from Weiser-Technik will include everything you need to install as you've seen it on my R1300GS. So for those of you with the earlier generation bikes, the kit comes with everything that you need. So inside that kit will be a pair of brand new OEM R1300GS mirrors. You're also going to get 1 meter of that shielding cable, which gives you that really nice neat install. This slides over the INNOVV cables to give you a nice clean install. I actually used on my bike on the 1250 25 centimeters left and right, but Weiser-Technik are going to give you 1 meter just in case your bike needs a bit more distance with cable routing. They're also going to include 6 additional cable ties just in case you've got an older bike that doesn't have those wonderful rubber straps that I showed you earlier on. They're normally on the BMW motorbikes, but just in case you don't have them or you don't have enough, there will be some cable ties in the kit. You're also going to get that heat shrink tubing to give you that nice neat install. That's 10mm internal diameter, and you're going to use a hot air gun to shrink that down to get a nice neat tight finish. And then importantly, what's also included in the kit is one of these. This is a posi tap connector. Now, if you don't know what these are, I've got lots of videos on my channel showing you how to use them and how great they are. It's just an extra little device that might well help you during an install to pick up a 12-volt feed from a system on the motorbike. Maybe it's the DIN plug socket on the side here, or maybe it's a USB port, but that is really important to have, and it's going to be included in the kit. Now, I just want to stress, the kit that comes from INNOVV, that's the ThirdEYE Radar system, is just that. Inside that box is everything you need for the installation, from the back of the bike all the way to the front, up until the point where we're going to connect the mirrors. So that will be the radar unit, that's all the brackets and the adjusters and the screws and bolts to mount that radar system somewhere on the back of the bike. That includes the module in the center, all the cables, everything you need, up until the point that we're going to fit the mirrors, which is what we've covered today. So it's important to understand that if you do buy this box by itself, you're not going to get the rest of the kit. Now, in the video description below, you will find a link to Weiser-Technik where you can buy the full kit. They also have the other 2 versions, the mirror version and the LED version. They also have a range of the INNOVV camera systems. That's the K5, the K7, the K6. Anyway, I have had so much fun with this system. Over the last 2.5 years, I've fitted lots of different parts and accessories to my motorbike, and without doubt, this is in the top 1 or 2 things, along with the Weiser-Technik indicators, that I fitted to my motorbike. We have a beautiful, clean install. It looks just like it does on the R1300. It looks really very, very good. In terms of system performance, I've had no issues. The system works every single time, and with those 2 functions, that blind spot detection system and that rear collision warning system, which I showed you earlier on, which picks up vehicles traveling much faster than you from behind. It simply is a brilliant system, and we now have a way to add a bit of technology, and importantly, we can take some of those safety features that are just coming out on those new bikes and add it to our older generation bikes, because as we all know, these are jolly expensive motorbikes, and there really isn't a need to keep changing our motorbikes. If you're happy with your bike and you want to keep it, but you like the idea of adding some of the new technology features from the brand new bikes, this certainly is one way that you can do it. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I've had a lot of fun with this system, and I hope you do too. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.